right, we're all set. I'd like to call back to order the regular meeting for this evening. And once again, I'd like to, in honor of the Tsleil-Waututh, acknowledge that we are meeting within the unceded territory of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. This meeting of council is being held virtually with all meeting participants attending via electronic communications to adhere to the provincial health officer's orders respecting physical distancing as a measure to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. Council members will be involved in and participate in the meeting virtually as they would in person. For those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Council members attending the meeting are required to verbally advise the chair when they leave the meeting and return to the meeting, so this can be recorded in the minutes. For clarity, if a council member does not verbally advise the chair but is observed to be absent from their video feed and their video feed remains on, and it is unclear to staff whether they are present in the meeting, the council member will be marked absent from the meeting until such time as staff observes the council member to reappear. Members of the public who wish to ask questions during open question period at the end of the meeting will be able to do so, and I will provide instructions at the time. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Somebody like to move the agenda? Am I frozen? Oh. Councillor Zant.
Am I frozen?
It looks like we might be freezing up here.
Motion to approve
Yeah.
agenda.
Okay, I can hear your voices, but most of you are frozen on my screen. I don't know if that's just me.
No, I'm feeling quite popped.
So zero. Okay, let's keep trying. Second, seconder, please.
Second.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of minutes from the regular council meeting 1534 from Tuesday, March 16th, and from special council meeting 1535 from Thursday, April 1st. Moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Noble. Discussion. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising from the previous council meeting? Seeing none, we have no rise with a report or business arising from the COW or committees or delegations. So we're on to reports. Number 11. 11A is Office of the CAO. Ms. Gilmore, verbal report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to take the opportunity to provide a little bit of an update. We had a Pemberton Valley Emergency Management Committee meeting. I think it was yesterday morning. It seems like a long time ago already. And I just wanted to provide a few little updates on what the discussion points were and where we were at with a couple of projects that the village has actually partnered with the Pemberton Valley Dyking District on. So we had representatives from all the communities who are part of the committee, which is the Village of Pemberton, the SLRD, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. And one of the projects we first discussed that we were successful in achieving grant funding for was the Arn Canal culvert or outlets. So the engineering is about 90% complete. There are some environmental issues we're working through right now, or the Dyking District is, just with regard to the type of reinforcement, whether we were looking at a concrete head wall at first, and now there will have to be riprap. So there's just a little change in environmental applications. So they're still proceeding on that. The Rhine River Gauge, the Water Survey of Canada is actually going to be installing that. They're also working on the Miller and Green gauges. And so the PVDD will hopefully be installing this before the freshet. They're not 100% certain if they're going to be able to achieve that timeline, but they are working towards that. And the sediment removal, you may have seen a lot of trucks hauling gravel from various locations off the Lillooet River, and they should be done by Wednesday or Thursday of this week. And it's about 44 days. And so they achieved what they were able to extract much quicker than they did last year. And it's about 60,000 cubic meters that they have removed. That was sort of the first topic of conversation. Tsleil-Waututh also updated on a few of the projects that they are working on, which is the Polyard Dike, the Birkenhead monitoring gauge update, which they are still working. We didn't have too much of an update, but they are working on getting ready and river monitoring for that, as the Birkenhead is an unusual river and sometimes has a mind of its own. So they're looking for the best place to put that. They're also working on the Grandmother Slough drainage and a habitat assessment study, which is still ongoing. I think one of the biggest topics that we discussed at this meeting was how we were going to be able to move forward with funding for these projects in the future. Typically, when we receive funding from Emergency Management BC over the past couple of years, they were looking for a valley-wide approach in applying for funding. So oftentimes it was the SLRD and the Pembina Valley Diking District, or the Village and the Pembina Valley Diking District, or Luat and the Pembina Valley Diking District who applied for these funds. And the reason that the Diking District was involved in this all these times is because their role is to maintain the dikes, and the dikes are actually in their inventory. Unfortunately, just as the last couple of months, this has changed. So the applicant or organization who is making the funding application now has to retain ownership of the asset and maintain that asset. The problem being is that the Pembina Valley Diking District is not an eligible entity to apply for these funds, and it doesn't really make sense for anybody else to secure and these assets as their own and maintain them when it's a function of the Diking District. So there have been letters sent off to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, to FLNRO, and the Public Safety. So I would imagine that there will be some lobbying that we will all be asked to participate in, and whether or not it's sort of a multi-approach. We try to contact the ministries in advance, but also this should be recalled as a UBCM item that we should be focusing on regionally together, because it does impact any future funding that we will be looking for in the future. So it's a pretty big change. In fact, I don't know if it was a ministry representative or an EMBC representative actually phoned to inquire about the committee that we formed together, because they want this to be sort of the guiding, I guess, approach to how they want communities to deal with that. But now they've sort of changed the rules, so it's going to be a bit of an issue. A couple other items that they talked about is there's been some further correspondence sent regarding the Miller Dike seismic rating, which we talked about quite a bit before. I know that they have received an acknowledgement of the letter. It was sent to the Inspector of Dikes, but they haven't, sort of mid-March, but they haven't received official correspondence back at this point. And then the other thing that we talked about was the Pemberton Creek sediment issues. It appears as though something must have changed on the hillside. There's going to be some more investigation done, but Pemberton Creek is seeing a high rate of gravel and sand that's being actually similar to what's happening with the Lillooet River. A lot of sediment buildup, much higher return than it has been. I think once every 10 years we were having to clean it out. Now every couple years we're seeing quite a bit of an increase. So we're doing some further investigation on that. I think the last thing that we talked about was now the fact that we had the river monitoring gauges funding approval is we just need to decide as all of the communities together how we're going to continue to fund and maintain these. So there will be a further conversation coming back in the future. You know, it makes sense with the, you know, the SLRD and Village of Pemberton are already taxpayers and of the Diking District, and I think we just need to come to a final conclusion on that. But the conversation was very positive, and I'm just glad that I get to be part of this and get these updates, because I think we all need to work together on the flood protection for our area, and it's the only way we're going to be able to do this moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions? Okay, motion received.
Motion received.
Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Development services. I'm going to wait for some staff to join us. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So we're now moving on to 11B1, which is the development variance permit number 127 for 7665 Civilian Drive. I'll save my comments for after. I will turn it over to staff for their presentation. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, Council. So I'll just be providing an overview of the revised development variance permit application number 127 submitted by Stephanie Nicole Russell and David Russell, the owners of the subject property located at 7665 Cerulean Drive. So this application was initially considered by Council on March 16th, and a resolution was passed to refer this application back to staff to work with the applicants on some revisions. The applicants have considered Council's comments and have provided a revised proposal. So looking at figure 1 on page 19 of the agenda package, here you can see the revised retaining wall proposal where the top 2 rows of the existing wall have been removed. And the bottom row, which is 0.56 meters, will now be completely buried in this revised proposal. As a result, the appearance of the retaining wall will be 2.8 meters in height. The applicants do remain committed to landscaping to further mitigate any visual impacts of the retaining wall. So with this revision, the variance request has been adjusted to request to vary the maximum height of the retaining wall from 1.2 meters as permitted in the zoning bylaw to a maximum of 3.36 meters, which is a variance of 2.16 meters. Notice of Council's intent to consider issuance of the development variance permit was sent to adjacent property owners within 100 meters. And the notice does indicate that the public has the opportunity to speak towards the application at today's meeting or provide written comments. Staff have received 1 letter of objection, which was received after the meeting agenda package was prepared. And this letter was circulated to Council and the applicant yesterday evening. Moving forward, Council has the following options. Firstly, to authorize issuance of the original development variance permit number 127A with the provision of a landscape bond. Secondly, to authorize issuance of the revised development variance permit number 127B with the condition to provide a landscape bond. Thirdly, to refuse the application. And lastly, to refer the application back to staff to address any further considerations. So at this point, staff are seeking Council's direction as to which option is preferred. Please let me know if you have any questions for staff before hearing comments from the applicant who are here this evening and the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. So as she mentioned before, our next steps will be to hear from the applicants and then open it to the public. Before we do that, are there questions from Council for staff? Councillor Caddick.
Thanks, Mayor Richmond. Excuse me, Ms. Reese. The motion that was put on the floor by Council stipulated developers to address concerns of the neighboring property owners. What has been done to address those issues?
Yeah, I think that question would probably be best directed towards the applicant. I am aware that some conversations have been had, but I think they'd probably be better to speak towards them.
Any other questions for staff? Councilor Antonelli.
The letter you received that objected, was that the one from McIver?
Yes.
I'm just a bit confused because reading that letter, it seemed like they were objecting to the other one at 6-1.
That's right.
So was there another letter that I might have missed?
Yes, there was a letter regarding this application number 127.
So is that the letter from Mr. McIver?
Yes.
Okay.
From 7663 Cerulean Drive.
I see. Some of you are freezing on me again, so if I'm missing you, let me know. Are you good, Councillor Antonelli?
I'm just looking at the letter. Sorry, I'm trying to balance all these different pages. It's from April 11th, from McIver there, and it says that they're objecting to development variance permit 128. And is that at 661 or 665?
Ms. Fraser?
If I may, yesterday we received 2 pieces of correspondence from Mr. McIver, 2 letters of opposition, one in opposition to development variance permit number 127, which is the one that we're looking at right now. And then a second letter that was to development variance permit 128, which is the next item on the agenda. I sent those letters in 2 separate emails to council last night.
It looks like the same letter was sent twice.
Oh, my apologies.
It's okay. It was confusing for that. I had to go back and forth a couple times to.
Okay,
Yeah, so
my apologies. I will send the.
I
So
don't think,
to clarify, McIver objected to both permits that are, okay. Okay, well, that's informative. I didn't know that for.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions at this point, so I'm going to invite the applicant to speak to their application. So I'll let staff set that up for us.
Hi, it's Stephanie. Can you, oh, there we go. Okay, good. You can hear me now.
You can see you and hear you. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. Mayor and Council, thanks very much again for the opportunity to present to you a request for a development variance permit. In reading our recent submission, you will note that we've made the conscious effort to decrease our wall by 35%. And with that, we're proposing removal of the top 2 rows of the retaining wall, burying the entire bottom row of the retaining wall, redesigning a portion of our home, increasing the side setbacks, removing the existing formwork and the rebar for the footings that are on site currently, keeping our existing landscape plan as submitted, and of course, keeping the deadline of June 30th to complete our landscaping. With the completion of the above, as you'll note from our letter, this is a significant impact to us. And we've also submitted an update report regarding the significance or no impact, I should say, from the geotechnical engineer we have. In regards to the letter that was submitted from our neighbor at 663, we're only choosing, we're going to remove the fill. We're cutting and capping the drainage pipe, which is also reported in our geotech engineer report submitted, and redesigning of the retaining wall on the southeast corner, which are the 3 things that he's most concerned about. Although you haven't received it, I will make a comment about the letter that Mark and his partner has sent to you on April the 12th regarding the fill that has yet to be removed from his side of the property. That's the only comment we're going to make. And I just want to address that, yes, the building inspector did relax our stop work order to allow the fill to be removed from 7663 onto our lot. And yes, we were prepared to have that work begin. However, recently we were advised that the fill should be removed from our lot rather than having our excavator situated on 7663 to remove the fill and put onto our lot. So this is out of concern for any potential damage that may occur while operating the equipment hired by ourselves while on the neighbor's lot. And so for us to have the excavator access the fill from our lot, we need to remove the existing formwork, and our current stop work order does not allow us to do that. We have made a request by email to the building services and building inspector and the manager of development services to further relax our stop work order, and we have yet to have a reply. Upon the relaxation of that stop work order, which we hope would be in the next day or so, would be the removal of the footings, and that would start immediately. And this, we believe, would take 2 days. And then following that, immediately, we would start to remove the fill from 7663. Of course, we're committed to the immediate action upon council's decision. You know that we're eager to begin our build. Previously stated, I just want to reiterate the steepness of our lot in comparison to our neighbors. So our steepness grade is at 37.7%. 7661, which is coming forward tonight for a variance request, their steepness grade is at 25.83. And 7671, which already has the retaining wall as well on Sterling Drive, has a steepness grade of 28%. So those 3 grades tell you the significance between our lot and the others on Sterling Drive. And of course, as mentioned previously, ours is being the steepest, is extremely challenging to build on a steepness grade of 37.7%. And our images attached in our report also state that as well. So Mayor and Council, with the decrease of our wall of 35%, you know that we already have support submitted letters by members of the Sunstone community. And after a lengthy delay of 7 months, we are seeking your approval based on the proposed changes to the retaining wall, the outcomes reflecting the proposed changes, the site section images showing the steepness of our grade, moving forward to remove the fill and other items related to 7663, and recognizing the significant impact to resolve the concerns and the time lost to do so. So we are hoping that you would recommend and certainly reconsider option 1, 127A, or option 2, which is 127B, so that no further delays are incurred. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Russell, did you want to add anything? You're all frozen on me again. Oh, there we go.
Do I have anything to add? No, I think Stephanie summed it up quite well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next I'm going to open up to the public for comment on the development variance permit application. And for those in attendance who do wish to provide comment, please click the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. This will notify our staff that you'd like to ask a question. Village staff will announce your name when it is your turn and will unmute your microphone for you. Please be reminded that only comments directly related to the proposed development variance permit are permitted. So with that, I will look to Ms. Kennedy, and if anybody would like to make comment, please hit the raise hand feature.
We have Mark McIver.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. McIver.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time to review this development variance permit. It's unfortunate I didn't get a chance to read my letter. Hopefully you get a chance. I'm not gonna read the whole thing right now. I'll read a few other comments. My apologies for the bluntness of any of our recent letters. If it's not perceived from those letters, we do carry some frustration and concern. Regarding lot 7665 application, we did meet on site, and it was a great meeting, and we agreed to various items. However, since that meeting, the plans and commitments have consistently changed. We oppose this revision, as the owner should be held accountable to a more detailed plan for the revision of the wall, complete with redesign details of the retaining wall, as if this were a normal application and not allowing for assumptions. A list of committed dates should be included for when the work will be completed, in particular the items pertaining to encroachment on neighboring properties. Additionally, it has been made clear by new development variance applications that you can build on these sloping lots without the use of retaining walls to support the structural footings. The slope of 37 degrees as indicated in the application by owners at lot 7665 is 2.2 degrees steeper than our lot at 7663, which is 34.8 degrees. It is stated in the design guideline to use a combination of cut/fill and step footings. If we use basic cut-fill calculations, you will determine the actual buildable sloped area within the building envelope setback is 26 degrees, for lot 7665 and 25.6 degrees for our lot 7663. If you review the topography of the lots in Doug Bush survey in the original application, you will see the elevations of the original grade at the toe of fill location around the base of retaining walls, and you will see these are the original grades that match our sloping lot. We will be using cut fill method and step footings for simplicity of build on the sloping lot, and we will not have the need for retaining walls that exceed the current bylaw regulation. It should also be noted, gabion rock walls are not listed as methods for retaining walls in the design guideline. Only stacked rock, unit concrete systems, geotechnical planted systems, or architectural concrete are listed. Perhaps this would have been picked up if the permit had been requested prior to building the retaining wall. Looking at the section, this is an additional comment again, looking at the section in the revised application, with removing 2 rows, this creates a substantial slope from top of wall to the top of their footing. Please note the slope is from top of footing, which does not show the 60 centimeter minimum frost protection. This should be addressed in my initial comments at the beginning by full detailed plan. Otherwise, any backfill material for frost protection on those footings is just going to slough off down the new slope by removing those top 2 courses. These lots, the lots are easy to build on with cut fill methods and the use of step footings. This is the approach that we will utilize. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak to the development variance permit application?
We have a question from Sandy Britt.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you bet, go ahead.
My first Zoom meeting. I just want to make sure it's a comment in support actually of, we're the owners of 7661 Cerulean Drive. And we have been watching what's going on in the neighborhood. And to be honest, we were not fans of the big wall, but we did not oppose and we did not support. We do have to all live in a neighborhood together. So we do actually are in support of the revised wall. The technical things that Mark was talking about, I really don't know about those, but we feel that the wall is now a reasonable height and their landscape plan is aesthetically pleasing. So I just wanted to throw that in. I did not get a chance to write a letter in for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
No, I don't see any more raised hands at the moment.
Okay, I'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, if there are no more comments from the public, then I'll turn it over for council for comment on the proposal. Table's open. Who would like to speak? I don't know if you're frozen or shy. There you go, Councillor Craddock.
Thanks, Mayor Richmond. This is a very difficult situation that council has been put in. And it has not been our situation that we should be in this position. We have a bylaw that lays out very clearly what is allowed and what is not allowed. We have hillside policy guidelines that add to that, so there shouldn't be any misconceptions about what can be done on the site. The motion that we put on the floor last meeting was to make sure the developer and the applicants address concerns of the neighboring property owners. And it appears that we have a letter for this application and the one we're going to look at next, that appears that he has not been fully happy about what is being done, and he opposes both of them. I guess if I have a concern, it is for council and it is for staff. If we allow these variances to go ahead, we have 2 at this meeting. We'll have another one coming to us very shortly, and there are quite likely others after that. It's a lot of time and effort, and it should not be on council to make decisions against a bylaw that the planning department brought to us, the community approved, and council has re-endorsed just last month to abide by. I'm concerned that it's not easy to sit on council and make decisions between people you know in a community. And it's especially hard when the decision is against a situation where the bylaw hasn't been conformed to. And now we're being asked to correct that wrong. And it's going to impact people that have done nothing wrong. And it's going to basically potentially ruin their way of life. And we've already had one person sell their property at quite a loss of money because they could no longer continue down that road. So I guess my concern here is really council's been put in a position that we should not have been put in. And I'm having a real concern, even with the new application. I don't think it goes anywhere close to what we're looking for. It doesn't seem to make the neighbor happy at all. And I think council at this point, if we don't want to have these kind of meetings going on for this council and potentially the next council trying to make decisions against neighbor and against policy and bylaws, then I think the best thing for us to do, in my mind, would be to say that you need to adhere to the bylaw. It will upset a couple people now, but in the long run, over the next number of years, people will know where we stand and we will not have to deal with any more of these issues. So thank you very much, Mayor Richmond.
Thank you, Councillor Craddock. If I could just maybe comment a little bit on the process. I mean, staff brought to us a few options for the bylaw for retaining walls, heights, how to deal with these issues. Council about a month or so ago decided to stick with the status quo at 1.2 meters and everything else requiring a variance. When we discussed that future properties to be subdivided have to take this into consideration so that we don't find ourselves in this position. But in the meantime, there are a number of properties that were allowed to be subdivided on fairly steep terrain and therefore would have trouble conforming to that 1.2 meters. And when we went back and forth on potentially amending that bylaw, our decision was to stick with the status quo as council with 1.2 meters. And I recall in that conversation discussing that with that decision, it will lead, because of these in-stream projects, it will lead to these development variance permit applications inevitably, because there are some properties that will struggle mightily, or it's financially impossible the way they were cut up for them to be able to develop under those conditions. So I think, to be fair, we did sort of, I don't want to say set ourselves up for this, but it was part of our decision making to stick with the 1.2 meters, recognizing there were properties already in stream that were going to struggle with this, and And that's where we find ourselves now. In fact, I think I even warned of it as we had the conversation. So that's where we find ourselves now. And the whole idea behind variance permit application is to potentially be provided with a compelling case that the property or the application in question does not fit within the bylaws as they are written, and under these circumstances can get a variance. So I think that's how we're looking at it. I have more comments on the actual application, but I just wanted to comment on the process, how we got here to this point. Yeah. So before I take any more airtime, I'll open it up to the rest of council. Councillor Antonelli, go ahead.
Right. So I actually found the diagrams a little bit difficult to give me a full picture of what they're proposing. I'm looking at page 75 of our agenda, and there's a clear photo of the wall and the shadow on the edge of it. And my perspective is that I'm glad, you know, they came forward with some revisions, but I don't think it's gone quite far enough. If you take off the top two tiers there, it's still quite an imposing wall. And now, so our resolution said to address the concerns of the neighbor. And, you know, by this letter, which I haven't seen, but I understand that the concerns weren't addressed. So I think some more work needs to be done to ensure that what's being proposed is significant enough to, I guess, mesh with what's going to happen on the neighboring property, because it's just not fair to have that middle lot in a hole because the neighbors on either side are looking for variances. So that said, I'm not opposed to the variance process and looking at some minor variances, but this still seems really major to me. And yeah, I think that we need to work harder to address the concerns of the neighbor who wants to comply with the bylaw.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Councillor Noble.
It looks like most of the concerns were addressed with the redesign, but Mark McIver did bring up a concern about the backfill, which would potentially be sliding back on his property. I would like to see how that would be addressed.
Thank you. Suzanne, did you want to provide a comment?
As my comment is aligns with Councillor Craddock and Councillor Antonelli, the bylaws in place. It was approved by the community, it should be followed. Moving forward with that, you know, the DVP process is there for a reason, but I think this variance goes a little too far. I would send it back to staff and have them work with the applicants again to better address the issues that have been brought forward.
Okay, thank you. So my comments would be, again, variance permit process is for special circumstances, and I feel the steepness of the lot is a little bit, does spell out special circumstances. I feel like the applicants have made a very strong effort to hear the comments from council in our past meeting. I'm looking at the wall as I speak to you. And by eliminating the top couple of tiers and by burying the bottom and proper landscaping, I feel like that goes a long way to mitigating the visual impacts and the impacts to neighbors. It's a difficult process. We don't want to find ourselves pitting neighbors against neighbors and having to choose. It's awkward. I really hope that the variances that come to us in the future come to us before any construction has been done, because this puts it in an even more difficult position. But I do feel that the applicants have made a very strong effort to mitigate the impacts, to address the concerns of neighbors. It sounds to me like some of those concerns can only be addressed if there's a relaxation of the stop work order. So if we want to make sure that those commitments are met as part of approving it, And if we want to make sure the sloughing on the top is met as part of approving it, I'm okay with that. But I lean towards approving this development variance permit application. Again, due to the steepness and the circumstances, I feel that the effort has been made, and I think I'm okay with it in its current form. So my preference would be to pass it with provision that the sloughing is dealt with, and making sure that the other, sounds like it already is, but the other material gets removed in the way that was described. Is there any further comment? And if not, then go ahead, Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, Mayor Richmond, and I know you spoke about my comments, so I'm going to speak about your comments. So I guess my concern would be is that in approving this, you're basically saying you're going to approve the property on the eastern side of the neighbor's property, which, like Councilor Antonelli says, puts his fellow in a hole. We've already seen a property on 7 O'Clock Drive be put in a hole just because of that situation. And I'm absolutely surprised that we would go with that type of situation where it was clear on our motion that it had to be at the developer had to deal with the neighbor, and that has not been done. I don't want to say no to their project. I know it's costly. I know this has held them up a long time, but honest to gosh, yes, the variance board is here for a purpose. They turned it down. Now we're looking at it and we're going to approve it. I don't think any of us want to be in this spot going forward where we're doing this every month or every other month with a number of properties, and that's what we're going to see. The one on the table today we got to deal with. Then there's the other one that the house is already built and they've got a bigger wall than the one we're dealing with tonight. We have to deal with that. And there's others coming up. And there's no point in my mind for the community to support a bylaw that we're going to turn around and say, well, yeah, they made a mistake and they shouldn't have done it. Well, that isn't for me to correct. And good for you for thinking it's a good thing to go ahead with it, but I can't support it at this point in time. And we've got a lot of property to build on Sunstone and eventually on the Benchland. And I want people to know from the outset that we have a bylaw. That's what you have to build to. And there's going to be no variance unless it's through the variance board, which is for minor variances and hardship only.
Thank you. And just to respond to that, the variance board didn't turn down the application. They refused comment and pushed it to council because, as he said, they felt it was more than minor. There was major. So they didn't reject it. They put it to council feeling that it was a major application. Yeah, no, I think you make some good comments there. And I think we do want to send a message that we want to build with the natural landscape and we want to avoid retaining wall. And I don't like having to, when going ahead, putting us in a position where we have to approve something that's already done and approve forgiveness rather than go through the process early on. Furthermore, Councillor Craddock, I haven't made any comment on the next application, so I'll reserve my comments for that application next. But they're different from this one in different ways. So yeah, I respect your position. It is my opinion that they have worked with the neighbor and that they are willing to do all that work to remove the slough. And I feel they have made a substantial change to the design. So that's where I sit at this point. Any further comment? Hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion. So there's the motions as laid out. Just let me get to the page so I got them clearly in front of me.
Page 20 and 21, Mayor Richmond.
Thank you. So the recommendation, there's 4 recommendations, or if there's a 5th that the staff hasn't thought of, would somebody like to make any of those motions? Councillor Noble, go ahead.
I would move option 127B with an additional provision that they continue to work with the remainder of the neighbors' concerns, like the sloughing and timelines. Clarity, I think, is what they're asking for on the revised
Okay.
amended development variance permit.
Moved by Councilor Noble, is there a seconder? I will second it for discussion. Any further discussion on it? I will have one comment because I meant to add it before, sorry, is that again, I do feel like we have set ourselves up for this. I think a 1.2 meter maximum on that hillside is going to prove problematic for a number of properties. And I think we, as I've said from the beginning, we need to keep an open mind to how to work with that moving forward for future subdivided properties. As we've said, we got to make sure that they're subdivided in a way that doesn't cause these problems. But the ones that are done, like Councillor Kelly, many of us have said, we'll be seeing more of these. So that's what's ahead of us. Any further comment? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Antonelli.
Yeah, I would just like to say that, in my opinion, they're almost there. A little bit more work would really benefit the entire neighborhood.
Can I ask what that would look like in your mind?
Well, I'm not going to offer a design, but I really think that just working on the relationship with the neighbor and taking a few more steps to specifically address concerns with a revised design. I don't think we're that far away.
And is it, and I'm just trying to, because I'm about to ask a question that I asked in the last meeting. Is it specific to the height itself or the shading, or is it like, I'm just curious what we would be sending the applicants back to work on?
I think the neighbor gave a really detailed letter, and starting with Lee Edwards, a lot of details were included in there about what the issues were. And I think we could work harder to address the specific issues in a comprehensive design. I'm not going to comment on a specific height or anything like that.
No, I'm not asking for specific numbers from you. I just, if we are asking the applicant, if we do end up going a direction where the applicants are going back again to work on this, I think it would be fair to give them that direction as to what we would like them to work on. So I'm just trying to get clarity if that's the direction we go. I'm not asking you for specific numbers. Okay, any further comment? So I'm going to ask a question like I did in the last meeting. We're at a point now where if I call the question and the motion fails, then the applicants cannot bring it back. If council feels that's okay, that this application should die, then I can certainly call the question. If the feeling of council is that, as Councilor Antonelli said, there is not that much more work to be done and that it is possible to get there, then we could remove the motion and look at option number 4, which is to send it back to staff and the applicants to address any further considerations, especially those of the neighbors. So before I ask the question, or before I ask the question on the motion, I'll pose that to you. Did I see your hand, Councillor Craddock?
Yes, you did, Mayor Richmond. So it appears you're not going to get support on your motion, but that doesn't mean the application dies because a person can put a second motion up. So depending on how you want to handle it, I would go with motion number 4, that we send it back, because I think we are pretty close, but I want to see the applicant look more closely to what the guidelines state, a 1.2 meter terraced, 1.2 meter terraced. I want them to work more closely with the neighbor to make sure they're somewhat happy about it. We can't make them 100% happy. And I think that's what I would look at if I were to support number 4.
Can I just get clarity from staff again? If the motion is defeated, they can't bring this application back, but they could bring in another one. How does it work?
Mayor Richmond, through you, if this resolution is defeated, then the application will be refused. And the council would have, so that automatically triggers a 6-month waiting period to bring back another similar application.
Sorry, I
Council-
believe it's 1 year.
1 year,
Yeah.
that's right. 6 month by statute, 1 year by your bylaw. And council has the ability to waive that with a 2/3 majority vote of council. So this resolution, if it's not going to succeed and council wants to go in a different direction, it's best to withdraw this motion and put forward a substitute.
Go ahead, Councilor Noble.
Well, I thought I could support 127B with that amendment, but if that's not how it works, then I will remove that motion and support motion 4 instead.
Okay. So a seconder for motion or for, so the first motion has been withdrawn, and then a motion is put forward for option number 4, that council refers the application, the variance permit 127, back to staff to address further considerations. So,
May I add a comment?
yes,
I
please.
think it would be helpful if we could understand what exactly council is looking for, in that if it's going to be referred back for staff to have further conversation with the applicants.
Would council like to provide some input on that? I know we're talking a lot about the neighbors' concerns. Are there specifics we'd like to identify? Councilor Craddock?
Yeah, thanks. I've already put my feelings forward regarding the bylaw and trying to stay closer to what's required. There's no point in having a bylaw, and there's no point in asking this council to lay out exactly what we want when the applicant hasn't met the design guidelines to start with. That's not up to us to do. It's up to the developer to come to us with something that's closer to what I expect to be done is the bylaw.
I did make note of your comments. I was just wondering if any other members of council had other suggestions that they wanted to have incorporated as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I spoke too quickly. Thank you.
Councilor Noble?
I'd like to see some of the specific concerns from the neighbor regarding the amended or revised variance proposal dealt with, like the potential of this sloughing off of soil.
Thank you. Anyone else to offer any specific or looking for specific changes? Go ahead, Councilor Antonelli.
One of the things that was mentioned was how the height of the wall affected the view from the middle lot, and I think that should be addressed. So what kind of elevation can be restored that will also restore the view?
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I don't think I got a seconder on the motion. Moved by Councilor Noble, seconded by Councilor Zant. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we're on to development variance permit number 128 for 7661 Cerulean Drive. I will turn over to staff for presentation on this one.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll just give an overview of development variance permit application number 128 submitted by Sandy and Stephen Britt, the owners of the subject property located at 7661 Cerulean Drive. The applicants are applying for the following variances from the zoning bylaw to permit 3 proposed sections of retaining walls and 4 overheight retaining walls. Specifically, the variances are to vary section 4.13 to allow retaining walls above 1.2 meters to be placed on the site above in compliance with the site plan they've provided. In addition to vary section 7.21 to vary the maximum height of the retaining walls, including to a maximum of 4.8 meters, a variance of 3.6 meters, to a maximum of 1.5 meters, a variance of 0.3 meters, and for 2 walls to a maximum of 2 meters, a variance of 0.8 meters. The subject lands are designated residential in the official community plan and are zoned residential amenity 1, Sunstone RSA 1. This property is an irregular shaped corner lot, and the rear lot line is adjacent to Sunstone Way. So if you just want to take a look at figure 1 on page 112 of the agenda package. So here, looking at this image, you can see the 3 highlighted sections of retaining walls that are proposed, labeled sections A, B, and C. If you continue to scroll down to the next page, you'll see section A. So here you'll see 2 retaining walls proposed, which are located at the southwestern corner of the property. The lower wall will appear to be 1.2 meters with 0.3 meters buried underground. And the upper wall will have a maximum height appearing to be 4.5 meters with 0.3 meters buried underground. And this wall height here is shown as the maximum height. And the height will taper down on both sides to a maximum of 1.5 meters on either end. So scrolling down, next you'll see section B. So this is 1 retaining wall that is proposed between the parking space and the rear yard. And this wall will appear to be 2 meters at its maximum with 0.3 meters to be buried underground. And this wall will also taper to the side to be less than 1.2 meters. And lastly is section C. This retaining wall is located at the northwestern corner of the property, and this wall will also appear to be 2 meters at its maximum height with 0.3 meters to be buried underground, and it will also be tapering lower to the sides, becoming lower than 1.2 meters. So if you continue scrolling through the agenda package, if you can find page 132, looking here, you will see the proposed landscape plan that has been submitted by the applicants to further mitigate any visual impacts from the retaining walls. Additionally, the applicants are proposing to construct the retaining walls using stacked rocks. And an example of this is shown on page 134 of what this would look like in terms of the materials that they're proposing. An information sign regarding the application was posted on the subject lands, and notice of council's intent to consider issuance of the development variance permit was sent to adjacent property owners within 100 meters. The notice indicates that the public has the opportunity to speak towards the application at today's meeting or provide written comments. And 1 letter of objection was received after the agenda package was shared, and this letter was circulated to council and the applicant yesterday evening. Moving forward, council has the following options. Firstly, to authorize issuance of development variance permit number 128 with the condition to provide a landscape bond in the amount of $3,840, which is 120% of the soft landscaping costs. Secondly, to refuse the application, or lastly, to refer the application back to staff to address any further considerations. So at this point, staff are seeking council's direction as to which option is preferred. And please let us know if you have any questions for staff before hearing comments from the applicant who are here this evening and the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Any questions for staff on the application? Councilor Craddock, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. Through to Ms. Reese. When the application came in, did the planning department spend some time with the applicants, letting them know the full implications of the zoning bylaw regarding retaining walls?
Yes, so we did meet with the applicants. We had a pre-application meeting. It should be noted that this pre-application meeting did happen a few months ago. So it was prior to council's discussion regarding retaining walls and the retaining wall bylaw.
So I guess you didn't answer my question. You did have the conversation with them about the retaining wall bylaw then, is that correct?
They were aware that they need to get variances in order for their retaining walls to be permitted. At the time of this meeting, council was still considering making changes to that bylaw.
Council was never looking at making changes to the bylaw. That was never brought up. So anyway, thank you for that. I guess the answer would be maybe. Thanks a lot.
Okay, now, Councillor Caddick, we discussed the bylaw on a number of commission opportunities, a committee of the whole, and at the regular meeting, and that's when we opted to keep it at 1.2 meters. So I think this application came in while we were having staff and working on it at council and committee of the whole. So just to be
Thanks for
clear.
clarifying that, Mayor Richmond.
Any other questions for staff before we go to the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I'll invite the applicant to make a statement on their application. I'm just connecting, Ms. Kennedy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
Awesome, thanks. Oh dear, that was nerve-wracking. Okay, I'm Sandy Britt, and I'm speaking on behalf of Stephen Britt and myself for support in the DVP 128 for 7661 Cerulean Drive. Thank you for your time on these applications, and I'd like to firstly thank Joanna for all of her help. She's been really efficient, knowledgeable, patient, and positive with us. It's been a pretty frustrating process. The purpose of the bylaw, which I obtained from Joanna, is to preserve the visual aesthetic of the hillside. That's my theme. So I'd like you to know a little bit about who we are. We've lived in Whistler and are working in Whistler for many years. We've always dreamed of building a home in Pemberton. Our daughters grew up and moved away, and we had the opportunity to purchase a lot in 2017. We chose this lot. It was our we had second choice in this development, and for the accessibility from that side of the road and for the corner lot. We have been renting in Pemberton for 4 years. We wanted to start our build, but have encountered many delays with the developer not finishing services, our architect's son needing multiple heart surgery, and me getting cancer. We submitted our building permit application in December, and now here we are in mid-April. We are not in the business of building and selling houses. This will be our retirement home, and the importance of accessibility with a level driveway and a flat yard with green space to enjoy with our dog and our grandkids is essential. Did we know about the bylaw? No, we did not, unfortunately. We've, over the years, have looked at many lots and homes in Pemberton, the dream of building here, and they all have high retaining walls, and we never thought it would be an issue. Sunstone Design Committee approved our plans, and we moved forward. The reason for our variance, as I've mentioned and is in our letter, is the accessibility, level road access to our driveway and house from the road, to allow for flat space for lawn, vegetable garden, plants and trees. Green space, plants and trees are not just important to the human environment, they form the basis for the sustainability and the long-term health of environmental systems. SFA designed our plans for the safety and geotechnical reasons in order to achieve a level driveway and yard. They needed to make some of the sections to be above 1.2 meters. The walls are all tiered, as Joanna explained. The upper left wall and under the driveway climb up to about 2 meters and then back down on either sides. The upper wall is about 4.5 meters with 0.3 buried, briefly in the center, and then drops quickly to 3 meters and then again to 1.5 in either direction. I would like to address some comments from 7663 Cerulean Drive in their opposition letter. They did state that the aesthetics of the proposed retaining walls blends into the community walls better than some current retaining walls, but this is still unnecessary and unappealing. We completely disagree that the walls are unnecessary for us and that they are unappealing. The suggestion was to have multiple rock walls with deck space. Having multiple rock walls with a wooden structure is not as aesthetically pleasing as having green space. There are too many developments these days with not enough green space. Our rock stack walls do not impede any neighbor's views, light, sun, or property. Our lot slopes lower away from 7663. Our rock walls match the rock stack walls that the developer installed throughout the subdivision and particularly directly across the street from our driveway. There's pictures in the application package. Our landscape plan provides lining the walls with a beautiful mixture of local flowers, creeping thyme, bloodgrass, and as well having a manicured lawn, vegetable and herb gardens, and trees. We have followed the process to apply for a variance, and we believe that, yes, there is a bylaw with you following the process and hoping that you will approve for the reasons that I've listed above. I'd like to thank you for your valuable time and consideration in our application. We hope that what we have presented to support approval of our permit demonstrates that we in fact are trying to preserve the visual aesthetic of the hillside and build a home and the yard that will complement the subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so for anyone in attendance who would like to provide comment on the proposed development variance permit, please click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. Just so notify staff that you'd like to ask a question. They'll announce your name and turn and unmute your microphone. Ms. Kennedy, would anybody like to speak to the application?
Mark McIver would like to speak.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I'll keep this one really quick, except I understand that you did have a chance to read my letter. So just for clarification, we are opposing the development variance application as the use of overheight vertical retaining walls defies the intent of the development guideline. In that guideline, it also clearly states retaining walls facing streets and neighbors should be stepped with planted terraces where possible. It does seem that they are doing some of that. There are several walls the developer has built in the development. However, these are for assisting the lots as best as possible for ease of constructability and to put in roads, which is very common in hillside developments through Sea to Sky. They don't really belong on individual lots. There is no need for these large imposing walls. There are alternatives, you know, for these landscape retaining walls. They're such as front yards, which the applicant has stated they would like to have as much of a front yard as possible, to have a lawn and garden, which I think is great for these properties. But you know, as far as the 4.5 meter retaining wall in the back, which is referred to as a lawn retaining structure in the geotechnical report, I just don't see the need to have that vertical wall just supporting a backyard when they have a big front yard. You know, so, and again, in terms of the deck spaces, you can have terraced landscaping with an extra deck off the backyard. It looks very appealing. If you drive through any other development in Sea to Sky, you will see similar decks and terraced rock stack walls. So that's all we have to say, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Moment.
There's a hand raised. Dave Russell would like to speak.
Go ahead. Thanks.
Good evening again. This has been a long process, and in support of 7661, there are many different reasons to build a retaining wall, and through this process, I've learned that really there's not very many people that actually know grades and slopes and what is needed. The one person that does know is Cameron. And he is one of your consultants, and he has more experience than everybody else put together, including me, with retaining walls. And he has suggested that a lot of these lots need a lot more retaining than what this bylaw covers. And when you have a poorly written bylaw, it ends up being dumped on the variance committee or on council, as Mr. Craddock said, that you voted not to change the bylaw, and then you reverse that vote a week later to not change it. But really, it's a very poorly written bylaw considering the steep hillside lots in Sunstone, and it needs to be addressed. And ourselves and other people are trying to work with it, but it's very hard to work with something that's poorly written. And just because Mark says one thing doesn't actually mean it's true. For myself, we would have no sloughing because we made our building smaller. For the neighbors, you don't know what's true until you actually talk to them and see what's going on. So I just like to say that one neighbor shouldn't determine, and you shouldn't hang on his words, because quite often they're not correct. And you should talk to other neighbors. Are there any other neighbors that are against this? No, there isn't. Just one person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? None. Ms. Kennedy, we're clear.
There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. So I will open it to council for comments on this application. Would like to go first. Councilor Noble, go ahead.
I'd just like to speak to Mark McIver's comment on decks versus green spaces. To me, that doesn't feel like an issue that's impactful to the neighbors. It's more of a personal preference. So I don't think that should reflect on decisions.
Thank you. Any other council comments on this application? Councilor Antonelli.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I appreciate that they're rock stack walls. I think that'll blend in with the neighborhood a little bit better. I do feel pretty disappointed that this is approved by the Sunstone Review without a lot of input on what council is trying to achieve with our bylaw. So we've heard it many times that the bylaw doesn't limit the size of the wall, the total size, to 1.2. It just requires a little bit of terracing to improve the aesthetic, setting it back every 1.2 meters by 60 centimeters. And so I think that we do have the provisions to work on a lot such as this. I'm looking at page 144, and it seems to me that the expectation that the yard is flat on this property, it might not be a reasonable expectation. I think you could do some terracing, and I think it will work really well for the property. I know in the engineer's report, it speaks to a pool. I don't think we should be granting variances for a wall this size to support a pool. I'm looking more to, hardship to grant a substantial variance. I'm not opposed to, looking at some more minor variances, but I think that we a little bit more work could be done to this proposal to bring it more in line with our intent.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Any other comments on this particular application? I did find it, I feel like there's been an effort to made on the terracing aspect of it, the way it's stepped around. did have a hard time visualizing it though with this, and I went up to have a look, which definitely helped. But yeah, I'm, if this gets sent back to, if this is going to get sent back to be brought back to us, some sort of a visual, if possible, worked into the hillside would be really helpful for me. I'm a very visual person. So it seems like there's a terracing effort made, and the back corner one, which seems like the bigger one, I don't know how that's sheltered from view. So I don't really have a very good sense of the visual impacts of the way this has been laid out. I would definitely like to get a better sense of the visual impacts. Councillor Caddick, go ahead.
Yeah, if I might, Mayor Richmond, I'll move option number 3 and have them address some of the issues you just brought up in Councillor Antonelli, and see if they cannot utilize the building bylaw or the bylaw for retaining walls more into the aspect of their development.
So motion for recommendation or option number 3, to send it back to staff and to have the applicant review. Seconder? Seconder, I'll second that motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Call the question. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Reese. Thank you, Mr. Chalmers. Appreciate your time. Okay, we'll just give a sec. I know Ms. Virginia was having technical issues earlier. Is she going to be able to join us for this?
She should be fine for this one.
Okay, so we'll give her a moment to join. Good evening, Ms. Pagini. We are on to the item of the Sabre Way Road renaming. And if you are technically okay, we'll send it over to you.
I am technically okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm coming at you from my home office, so should have no Wi-Fi troubles tonight. So the purpose of my presentation tonight is to seek council support to name an unnamed road located off Pemberton Farm Road East as Sabre Way. I think I could probably just cut to the chase. Basically, Sabre Way used to be the name of the access road that connected to Sunstone Way. And by way of a road name change, that whole section of road was renamed Sunstone Way with council's approval. And now at this point, we would like to find another portion of road in the vicinity to name as Sabre Way. And that would be partly to acknowledge the gifting of the rec lands by the Dendoff family, as well as just to find a name for that unnamed road. At this point in time, it doesn't serve access for anything in particular. It does, in the future, it will provide access to a future rezoning, a future portion of land that would require rezoning for residential use. And it would provide access to the formal parking lot for an amenity building or recreation building that hopefully will be built in the future on the rec lands. So if you want to refer to Appendix A, which is page 148 of the agenda, you will see the little section of road that I'm referring to. It's outlined in red. And I'll just sort of turn it over to council to discuss the merits of naming this portion of road Sabre Way.
Thank you, Ms. Virginie.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Councillor Caddick.
Thanks very much. I'm appreciative that the information is brought forward. I'd move the recommendation to go ahead with the naming of that piece of road.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes,
I
please
just,
do.
I just wanted to let council know that as we've indicated, as far as the recreation site renaming to Dendoff Park, if you've been out there lately, you'll see we just have a large board that indicates Pemberton District Recreation Site, as well as a board that thanks our funders and a concept map. So we're just getting another sticker to put on there for the time being that actually officially says, welcome to Dendoff Park. And we will be scheduling a ribbon cutting and more information. I'm reviewing a draft that I'm working with staff now on just a recreation update, which we will let the community know that we have renamed the park. So I just want to let you know we are moving ahead on a few of those other items.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to wait for Ms. Martin to join us. There we go. Good evening, Ms. Martin.
Hello. Good evening to Mayor and Council.
Thank you for joining us. We're ready to talk about the 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 895. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the purpose of this report is to introduce the Village of Pemberton 2021 to 2025 5-year financial plan bylaw for first, second, third readings and adoption. At the Committee of the Whole meeting number 213 held on Tuesday, March 16th, staff presented the draft 5-year financial plan for review and comment. The committee reviewed the draft budget and draft 5-year financial plan and passed the following resolution in support of the 2021 draft budget and the 2021 to 2025 5-year financial plan as presented. The 5-year financial plan bylaw must be adopted by May 15th of each year as per sections 165 and 197 of the Community Charter, and this meets with the requirements of the Community Charter and the Local Government Act. If we'd like to move on to the bylaw report, we can discuss some high-level points there. So the first view of the 5-year financial plan bylaw shows a consolidated view of revenues and expenditures for 2021 through 2025. It also includes our 2020 budget for comparison. A few high-level looks at this budget will show that our taxation level has slightly increased, and we'll go into that a little deeper into this report. Water sewer rates have slightly increased, and overall our revenues are similar to last year and our expenditures are similar to last year, with a lot of that funding coming from provincial grants and transfers. If we want to move down, the development of the 2021 5-year financial plan bylaw was completed during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The Village of Pemberton and its government partners monitor and continue to assess the impact of COVID-19 on our community and local government operations and finances. This plan includes cost measures and recovery grants that assist with the financial pressures the community faces and in support of economic recovery, as well as a focus on core service recovery or delivery. The village will continue to work with our federal and provincial partners to support a coordinated response to COVID-19. The table below shows the proportion of proposed 2021 revenue raised from each funding source, including transfers to other governments and also excluding transfers to other governments. Parcel taxes and taxes levied for the purpose of, parcel taxes are taxes levied for the purpose of paying the debt on the municipality's water and sewer infrastructure. If we want to look at this column of total revenue and percentages of where that revenue comes from, we can see that property taxes are at 26.1% of revenue. And this total revenue includes all revenues plus transfers from reserves. Of that 26.1% for property taxes, that is up overall 1.1% overall for the whole budget. And if we look at user fees, grants, DCCs, which is developer contributions, other revenues, those are actually all down this year. So our user fees and charges are at 22.1% this year, which is down 1.9%. Our grants are 34.7%, which is slightly down at 0.7%. Development contributions, 2.7%, which is minimally down 0.2%. Other revenues, 3.9%, which is also minimally down 0.4%. Proceeds from borrowing is 2.1%, which is up 0.4% this year. And then transfers from reserves, this is where we see the biggest change, is 6.8% for 2021, which is up 4% over last year. So in discussion of that, we are looking at a slight tax increase and utilizing reserves again in this year. Though the ratio changes we see are due to probably a little bit due to our 0% tax increase last year. And then yes, this year having to utilize our reserves a little more in order to keep our taxation at a reasonable level. Overall, our transfers to reserves in 2021 remain the same, which is good. So overall, we've managed to keep our transfers to reserves similar. We are just utilizing more of our reserves this year to streamline our budget this year. Moving on from there, we can look at the provincial class multiples as established by the provincial government, by BC Regulations 426 and 439, which sets the village multiples and the provincial multiples between classes. In addition, the ministry also sets a ceiling for the maximum allowable rate for Class 2 utilities. And further to that, properties that were included in the 2011 boundary extension under Class 2 utility, the tax rate is set each year as per sections 5 and 6 of the Rural Act. So if we want to look at this table, which shows our municipal tax rates by class and our percentage of total property assessment versus percentage of total property tax paid, the residential class is the majority of the classes at 84.1%, and they carry the budget at 69.2% of the taxation. The utilities are broken out between the rural utilities and regular utilities. Small folios, not many folios in this class, so they don't carry much of the budget. The other biggest contributor to the budget is our commercial class at 23.9%. We also have a permissive tax exemption bylaw that allows for permissive exemptions granted for the tax year. And we have a chart that shows the amount of municipal tax that we have contributed. So the municipal land and buildings is municipal owned lands. That would be what taxation would come off those lands. And then we have permissive tax exemptions for the following applications, which was the BC Conference of Mennonite Brethren, the Pemberton Child Care Society, the Pemberton Lions Society, Stewardship Pemberton, and Pemberton Search and Rescue. All of those folios are receiving a tax exemption with a total value of $9,184 foregone. We have our permissive tax exemption policy, if anybody would like to go through and further look into that. We can move on to our general assumptions for 2021. Our municipal tax revenues increased by 4% in 2021, with a budgeted amount of 1.8% operating and 2.2% to capital reserve. We were actually able to find a little bit more reserves in our audit. We're just starting to close our audit up. Our numbers are pretty close, and we were able to come in with a little bit more contribution to reserves this year. which was great. Our non-market change report for 2021 shows an average change in assessment value of 9.97%. Some classes show higher change while others show lower change than the average. Those properties that show growth higher than average will see an increase in taxes, and properties that show growth lower than average will see a decrease in taxes, even with a 0% tax increase. Our frontage tax is recalculated at 3.53 per meter for water and 5.79 per meter for sewer. Our industrial park parcel taxes equal the debt based on the overall cost of the project to install the water infrastructure to the industrial park only in 2007. And only those properties that did not choose to pay up front for that infrastructure will have a parcel tax on their roll. User fees for water rates in 2021 will stay the same, and user fees for sewer have a $40,000 overall budget increase for 2021. The 5-year general assumptions, a 10% administrative fee will continue to be charged on individual user requests and tasks. Operating costs will increase at annual rates ranging from 1% in 2022 to 2% in 2025 to allow for incremental returns following the COVID-19 pandemic. Payroll and benefit related costs are projected to increase at a rate of 2 to 5% per year, reflecting anticipated settlements under the village's collective bargaining agreements, increases for non-union staff, and escalations in benefit costs or other staffing adjustments. Transfers to external agencies are forecasted to increase at a rate of 1% to 2% in 2025. Our last page shows capital expenditures for 2021 through 2025. For 2021, the majority of those capital projects, some of which were carried forward from 2020, the majority are funded through grants and reserves. Very few of these are funded through taxation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Any questions? Another one? Okay. We've been working on this for a while, so thank you for that presentation. Would somebody like to make the motion as presented? Because of current circumstances, we are able to do first, second, and third readings and adoption in order with Ministerial Order number M192. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Seconded by Councillor Zant. Further discussion on the 5-year financial plan? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Okay.
It must feel good to get to
Thank
that
you.
point and then got to turn around and look at audit though, right? Like it's
Audit's almost done. We're a few weeks away and then we'll be back to present audit findings.
Awesome. Great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have just the one bylaw for first, second, and third reading, and this is on the business license bylaw 855 regarding an amendment to the cannabis fees in our business license. I will turn it over to Ms. Kennedy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for hearing my report. The purpose of this report is to present business license bylaw 855, amendment bylaw 894, 2021 for first, second, and third readings. As required by section 94 of the Community Charter, notice of the proposed amendment was advertised in the Peak News on April 1st and April 8th, and also provided through the e-news and on the village website. The amendment bylaw includes the changes to annual fees and application fees for cannabis businesses that were supported by council at regular council meeting 1533 held on March 2nd, 2021. These include a phased approach to reduction of the annual license fees for retail stores and production facilities, whereby business license holders will pay 1/2 of the current license fee in 2022, and then will pay the standard $150 license fee in 2023 and beyond. And the application processing fee for cannabis retail stores increased from $1,000 to $1,000 plus costs. And an application processing fee of $1,000 has been added to applications for cannabis production facilities. We've also included another change. It's been added in response to comments from Fire Chief Grossman, and this is a $100 fee for follow-up inspections. The fire chief and the building official conduct inspections of business license premises as part of the application review process, and currently the first inspection and one follow-up inspection are not charged. If a second follow-up inspection is required to ensure that the premises satisfy the building and fire safety requirements, a fee is charged as stipulated by building bylaw number 867/2019 and by fire prevention bylaw number 744/2013. In an effort to reduce the time spent conducting follow-up inspections, Pemberton Fire Rescue has recently implemented a self-checklist process that is completed prior to first inspection, and they've suggested adding a fee for all follow-up inspections. In most cases, a business license applicant would be able to avoid the re-inspection fee by sending photos to confirm correction of any deficiencies. So the re-inspection fee would apply only to those applicants who either fail to attend a scheduled inspection or who are completely unprepared for it. Some minor housekeeping amendments have also been included, such as changes to wording and to the organization of the bylaw to simplify it. Schedule A has been reformatted to show the phased approach to fee reduction for cannabis businesses and has been revised to include the new and revised fees. And this concludes my report. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you much. Any questions? Questions? This as well has gone through committee of the whole, so there's been lots of discussion on it. A couple minor amendments. There are no questions or comments. Would somebody like to make a motion, or was that a question, Councillor Zant?
I'll make the motion of the recommendation.
Second.
Okay. Motion is to receive first, second, and third readings on business bylaw number 855 on the amendment. Moved by Councillor Zant, seconded. Councillor Noble, further discussion. Call the question. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Okay, everybody doing all right? We've over an hour and a half. So we good to keep going, or does anybody need a 5-minute break? All good? Okay. Okay, Mayor's report is up next. I got a number of meetings and conversations I do want to catch you up on. In no particular order. Oh, actually, sorry, yes, in a particular order. Let's start with A, which is the Sea to Sky Soils request for proposal. So as we know, Sea to Sky Soils has done some fairly major expansion. And both Councillor Nova and myself have been speaking with the operator owners, and they're facing some real challenges. I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Nova to give you a quick rundown, and maybe I'll fill in any gaps in recent conversations I've had. Councillor Nova, can you maybe give an overview of the issue?
Yeah, just a little summary is basically Sea to Sky Soils is in danger of losing 80% of their business, which is from Vancouver, which is what enabled them to do such a large expansion. And the contract, they're considering it, giving it to a mine from up north who's coming down with trucks full of mine stuff. And instead of going back empty, they want to take the compost up there for mine restoration work. And the council is considering a cost savings, which I think was around a $7,000 cost savings to themselves because they wouldn't have to pay for the trucking. But I believe they're required to consider environmental and greenhouse gas emission aspects too, not simply financial. And Sea to Sky Soils is requesting support from council and mayor in the form of a letter, and they would also like it if we could send a delegate via Zoom for the council meeting to speak for a few minutes on their behalf as well on the impacts, which I believe it would have huge environmental impacts. We're going to see a resurgence of back road dumping, invasives, and all that stuff that they've done a great job at mitigating a lot of that. In addition, a lot of employment would be lost and skills training that they've been doing with Pemberton and Lilwat. And also just for the residents and farms of Pemberton and area, there will no longer be that source of soil amendments or green waste disposal. So it'll have a huge ripple effect impact on our whole area on so many levels. So I think it's very important for us to support them.
Thank you, Councillor Noble. Yeah, I think you covered it pretty much end to end. I mean, I think Sea to Sky Soils is an outfit we're lucky to have in our corridor. You don't have that kind of composting facility in most small communities, and it's a big key to meeting our GHG and our diversion goals. And as Councillor Noble said, without them, there would be a lot more illegal dumping. We'd be struggling a lot more with invasives. So I think they're a real asset to the community. And again, they're at risk of losing a big chunk of their business to this operation. So as Councillor Noble said, they are requesting attendance on the Zoom meeting as well as a letter of support. So are there any questions? And if not,
Richmond?
Go ahead.
I don't have any questions except that I'm glad I saw this come before council, and I support a letter and somebody going to their Zoom meeting to support Sea to Sky Soils. And I agree with your comments and Council Noble's comments that they are a huge asset to this community, and we are lucky to have them.
Okay. So you'd like to make the motion to write a letter of support as well as to have a member of council attend the Zoom meeting?
Ms. Fraser had her hand up there.
Yeah.
Could council confirm who we're sending a letter of support to and what meeting is being attended by a council member?
Yeah, so the letter of support it would be addressed to the Zero Waste Committee, and we can give you more information and connect you with the owner from Sea to Sky Soils. And Councillor Noble, I believe the meeting is with the Zero Waste Committee and some other, I believe the MLA is there. Who, do you know when that meeting is? Do you have more details on that?
I don't. I spoke to JJ and I hoped he was getting back to you with that information, but.
Yeah, I know. Let me just have a quick look at this email here. Yeah,
I believe it's on April 16th.
Yeah, it's on April 16th, and there's a number of people. We can provide more detail on the meeting. I think we can be fairly general about it in the motion. But the letter is to the Zero Waste Commission, and we'll provide more detail with the meeting. Councillor Noble, would you be willing to be present on that meeting?
I will. I think they were hoping for a mayor, but if that's not possible, I'll do my best.
I just know that you were passionate about it and you brought it forward, and so I was just giving you the opportunity if you'd like, but I can attend if otherwise.
The preference, they stated their preference would be to have the mayor if that's possible, but I will absolutely volunteer in lieu of that if you are unable to make it.
Okay. Is that clear enough for the motion, Ms. Fraser?
Yes, I'd just like to confirm the letter needs to be to the Zero Waste Committee before Friday, or does it have to, just what the timeline is? How do we make sure that it gets on the agenda? Any indication? We can reach out on our end, but
I've got so many emails in this list here. I can sort that out with you offline.
Okay, thank you.
Call the question. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And I'll just start going through a bit of a list of meetings I've had and conversation. One of them was with, also attended by Ms. Pedrini, and it was with Sea to Sky Community Services regarding some of the housing, short-term and supportive housing issues that we're seeing and the homeless issues we're seeing. Also on the call was representatives from a representative from BC Housing and our local homeless outreach worker. And she gave us a good rundown of some of the current challenges. The two biggest sort of challenges amongst others that are being faced right now are seniors that are getting displaced as properties are getting sold. Well, as properties are getting sold, displacement in general is the challenge. We're seeing it in a few demographics. One is with seniors, There's a number of them right now that the outreach worker and SCS are working to try to find new homes for relocation, which might end up being outside of our community because there is so little available right now. And the other bigger demographic is spouses fleeing abuse and single parents in need of supportive housing. So there's more detail provided. Obviously, we talked about it. We talked about it with BC Housing to see how there could be support given there. If you remember last time I reported on this, we talked about potentially finding vacant land and putting up temporary mobile units. So all that was discussed again. And by the end of the meeting, I think the two takeaways, it was felt that the two best directions would be the first, to find some short-term solutions for, as I say, those fleeing abusive situations and are in need of temporary supportive housing. The gap filler, so to speak, or the temporary solution to that would be to reach out to the community and see if there is an inventory between people's perhaps unused suites or Airbnbs that aren't being rented out now, or perhaps within the lodge or motel, that sort of thing. But put a general call out to the community to see if there is or are some available units that could be used to support some of these housing challenges on a temporary basis. So that's something that Sea to Sky Community Services is going to work with our staff to coordinate and see how we can deal with that. And then the second part was the modular homing and temporary homing, housing, sorry. And it was felt that because we have an application in for the Affordable Housing Project land purchase with Sea to Sky Community Services, it was best to wait out in the hopes that we'll get results from that sooner than later, because it was hard to really plan and reach out to landowners and work with BC Housing on potential modular or temporary housing when we don't know how long it's going to be for. We don't know the outcome of our potential affordable housing project with Sea to Sky Community Services. Yeah, that was probably it for that. I received a call from a new local developer who recently purchased the Telek property up on the hillside. So when you're looking at the rec center and you're about to cross the tracks, as you know, it's that steep sort of property right up over your right shoulder, the old Telek property. I think it's about 8 acres, fairly steep in some areas. So they purchased that and they'll be coming forward, and I know they're working with staff on an application, and he just wanted to reach out and present himself. So I did as I always do, and I get those reach out calls, and said, obviously I don't speak on behalf of council and that we look forward to the application. And I spelled out for him some of the important conversations we've been having lately, such as hillside development, what that looks like, retaining walls, natural landscape. So I was very clear about how important that is as a topic to council. And I was very, very clear about our housing needs in terms of affordable housing. And if their development is to include any rezoning or OCP amendments, that they should look to us, they should come to us with some housing solutions for us. And that we're very much interested in that. And I, just to back up, I'm not sure that they are actually, the land has been purchased, but I think they're attempting to make the purchase depending on how things go. It was just a reach out call, and like I said, I just tried to spell out some of the priorities we've discussed. Previous meeting, maybe I'll let Councillor Zant report out on that after. Attended the community forest information session. Councillor Craddock, you were there, yes? If you were, I'll let you report on that. That was good to attend. What else? Regional district meeting of a couple of weeks ago. There was a lot of Area D items and some northern items. I won't go, because I've got lots here. I won't go into too much detail. If you look at the agenda and you have questions, feel free to find me an email. A couple of interesting investments. There's a $40,000 investment from Area D going into provide toilets at the south beach of Furry Creek, which I think is a good thing. There's $120,000 in gas taxes to complete phase 2 of the Britannia Beach Playground. And a number of other initiatives. Our PVIS budgets were approved which came in pretty much flat as predicted. And the biggest item of the day at the SRD meeting most recently was the Tiger Bay development. I last reported on this after it came to a committee of the whole meeting at the regional district. At that time, it was sent back, or it wasn't sent back, it was referred back to the applicant and staff with about 8 major areas of concern. That the board said, look, if you can check these 8 boxes and make good provision for these 8 boxes, then perhaps your application will be close enough to bring to the board and give first reading and then go to public hearing. So they, and I'll go through some of those areas of concern. So it was brought back to the board just recently, and just as a real recap, this is the south side, a real quick recap, this is the south side of Britannia, not the northern side where the heritage buildings are, on the south side in the gravel pit where the filming goes on. The overall view is it's about 1,000 units of housing. On the southern side, there's glamping potentially. There's some hotel accommodation throughout. And the major commercial component for employment within the community is the surf park. And I'll get into a little bit more detail. And I know I've reported on it, so I don't want to repeat myself, but again, we sent away with 8 major areas of concern. So one of those areas was the density. The development is primarily made up of townhouses and multi-story buildings. They were looking for stratified roads, and the feeling among some of us was that it was quite dense, understanding that density is something that we're looking at building into more development now. But it felt quite dense and closed and didn't allow for enough movement. So what they have done is they've potentially moved 89 units into what they're now calling a flex zone. So I mentioned on the south side of Britannia, there was some consideration for glamping and small cabins. They would now like to push off that area of hotel accommodation and say it will either be used for the glamping or for those 89 units. So they removed 89 units from the main area to alleviate some of the density. They're considering duplexes and triplexes to diversify the housing a little bit within that development. So that will allow a little bit more space for parking. Townhouses will then get 3 to 4 stalls of parking, including the garage. So that's the density aspect of it. And I'll provide comment and then sort of give a quick understanding of where we sent them at the end of this. One of the other areas around this was staff and affordable housing. So what was brought forward was a proposal for 100 market units and 50 affordable housing units. There was discussion whether these units should be built all in one building or spread within the development. The big question around that was, is that enough? The board definitely felt that 150 units in a community of 1,000 units would not be enough, especially when they consider that the surf park alone would employ about 60 to 70 people. So it didn't seem like that would be enough when looking at the future growth of this area. So that was a question put back to the applicant. Isn't enough? And what was also brought out was, instead of it just being either one building for affordable and staff housing or built out in suites and in duplexes, the feeling is that it should be both. That there should be a dedicated staff building as well as allocations made within townhouse suites and duplexes for affordable and staff housing. Further diversify the community, as well as to make sure there's enough affordable housing. Transit, the main tunnel, they've agreed to double the width of that to allow for better traffic flow, so they brought that forward. One of the concerns that was sent back was with regards to the transit hub. The board wants to feel confident that the hub itself, we don't want to just be provided with a bus shelter and a pullout. It's felt that there should be a pullout provided for off the highway, so that once regional transit's in place, buses are not pulling off the highway into a community, rather just pulling to the side of the highway and a pullout. loading and unloading, and right back on the highway to make for an efficient service. So provision for that, and to make sure that the hub is got ample parking, that it's got EV chargers, bike lockups, and if this is going to be a dense community and we are going to encourage people to walk, then and use transit, then there's got to be ample parking, and there's got to be ample connection, walkable connection to the transit hub from the rest of the community. The surf park. The surf park is their main employment option. When they first came with a proposal, the board sent it back saying, look, we don't want to build a community that is purely commuter based. There has to be some employment. Light industrial was suggested amongst other things. This is what they came back with. Light industrial they felt was inappropriate in that location. And they felt that a surf park sort of ties into the tourism culture environment, outdoor tourism, adventure tourism culture that we have in the corridor. So that's what they've been bringing forward. Some of the concerns around that were around well water and environmental issues. Or what kind of water. So they've stated that they will use only local well water. The claim is that there's less consumption of water than the average golf course, and a very reasonable energy consumption. In terms of drainage, there was a request for more information on where this water gets drained so it doesn't affect local wetlands and ecosystem. And they have some commitments to carbon neutral targets and protecting the wetlands, but there was a request from the board for even more assurance on that. I was going to say it at the end, but there was wording within the proposals that there was a lot of commitment to and investment in, but not always real answers. So that's why some of these items were sent back saying, okay, well, we want more than a commitment to a transit hub. We want details on it. We want to see, we want assurance that carbon neutral targets are going to get made and the wetlands will be protected. Commercial components besides the surf park, there is a small local commercial component for the neighborhood. Bear in mind that in the northern part of Britannia Beach, there will be a grocery store and bigger commercial aspects, but with 1,000 units in this area, there's still, I think, a very decent need for some community commercial. As it stands, they've only supplied 8,600 square feet of community commercial, and that at the time include childcare. So we've pulled childcare out of there, and we'll discuss that in a second. But the feeling is that 8,600 square feet does not allow for any commercial growth in that area and further local employment. We want to make sure that this community is going to be a complete community as much as possible. Again, that it's not merely a commuter community. And so the feeling was that there needs to be more space allowed for growth over time for food and beverage, grocery stores, office space, physiotherapists, all that sort of thing. Because of a previous request, there is a school site that's being allocated for a potential elementary school and a community center site. Originally, they had offered just a shell. Now, after having heard comments from the board, they've offered to fully furnish it, but not make decision on what that looks like now, depending on how, as the community starts to be put together, just decide what those needs are. And so those details will be determined, but make sure there's a community center there. And so the thought was from the board to pull the childcare out of the community commercial space and put it next to and within the school site / community center, and make sure there's ample room for a healthy community there. Again, for school, community center, recreation, and daycare. And then parks and trails are the last one. Solid assurance that there will be Manatee Bay access. They have provided and parking to it, as well as parking for the other parks. There is a lot of concern that no matter how much parking, Manatee Bay will draw an incredible amount of people. We would like to see a walkable connection or active transportation connection to the Northern Britannia development. Flood protection has been well looked at. It does conform with the RGS. And the last one is fire services, which is something I've talked and reported on before, making sure that as all these developments happen on the southern part of the region, that there is a comprehensive fire plan to deal with all these developments and who does it belong to, how is it operated, and how is it funded. So that's a really big conversation, and that includes everywhere from Furry Creek to Northern Britannia, Portal Cove, etc. So with the fact that some of the wording was based more on commitment to rather than specifics, and it wasn't quite complete, the board sent it back to the applicant back to work with staff to shore up some of those details before bringing it back for a potential first reading and then for referral to public hearing. You guys have any questions on that one before I move on? It's a big development. It's going to have huge impacts. You know, it's gone back. It's been in the making. We're really trying to make sure to get it right. So yeah, and if you think of questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me. What else have I got for you? So PVMC, the CEO did a great job reporting on that. So I've had a number of meetings with the MLA, the MP, our corridor mayors, VCH, and some provincial ministers meetings. And all those meetings over the last few weeks have been very much centered on the vaccine rollout. So I'd just like to sort of finish on that note in my report. Just for reference, as we know, in case people don't know, they've really opened up the registration. By the end of this week, people 40 and above should all be able to register, which I think is great. It'll allow, if supply increases, it will allow them to accelerate the process if everybody's registered. Over the last couple of weeks, working with VCH and the province, I've been advocating on the village's behalf, especially for frontline worker vaccination. That looks like it's finally being taken care of, and frontline workers across the province are going to get prioritized, which is great for firefighters, bylaw officers, RCMP. You know, I've also received a lot of calls and emails from businesses, business associations, talking about grocery store workers, tourism workers, people on that sort of level of front line. So we've definitely been advocating for that as well. You know, recognizing that folks like grocery store clerks who have been exposed to risk for over 13 months now and continue to go to work every day. So the importance of vaccinating them. But most recently, the vaccination conversation has been about the new announcement, which is that Whistler will be receiving a community clinic a full community vaccination program. This started going to works late last week. In my calls and meetings, I've very much pushed to have Pemberton included in that. As you know, there's about 700 Pemberton residents already included in that because they work in Whistler and they have a Whistler job, so they're already included in that. We've tried to, you know, on different channels, push the idea of, hey, you know, if we're in Whistler, we should vaccinate all of Pemberton at the same time for the following reasons. The flow of traffic and the symbiotic nature of Whistler and Pemberton, of our relationship, we're impossible to separate. There's a constant flow back and forth between our two communities. You know, workers are great, but there's tradesmen and contractors, there's first responders, search and rescue, there are delivery salespeople. There's so many number of different trades and sectors that flow regularly between Whistler and Pemberton that don't necessarily have a Whistler employment badge or whatever to be able to, or check stub to be able to present, but are constantly in Whistler. And just by the sheer math of it, you know, looking at the fact that, you know, and the CEO helped me put some numbers together and put to this, by the time you remove those 700 workers, those that have already been vaccinated, et cetera, we're under 2,000 people in Pemberton and Area C left to vaccinate. And again, many of those are already in contact with Whistler. So I just wanted to let you know, I want to let the public know that we have been working really hard on a bunch of different channels, a bunch of different levels behind the scenes, trying to get Pemberton included in that community vaccination plan. Again, the numbers and the logic is there. I totally recognize that VCH and the province are stuck in a position where they have to be very careful how they roll out a limited supply. The provision of healthcare is a delicate thing, and they have to find a balance. Mayors, I'm on calls every day, and mayors across the province are all making very strong cases for the need for vaccination in different areas. So they have to be very careful and very balanced and very measured. So I totally respect that. I just wanted to let you know that with all that said, we feel a very strong case, and we've reached to the higher echelons of VCH and to provincial officials to try to make that case. So hopefully we can piggyback on that effort. If not, as I said, the registration is opened. Hopefully we are no more than a few weeks, 8 at the very most is what they're saying, until all adults in BC are vaccinated. So no, it feels a little tough. Spring is truly here. It's gorgeous outside. I feel like a lot of us were shooting towards this time from last year, going, oh, we just got to make it to April next year and everything's going to start to look better, and it's not quite feeling there. But with this vaccination rollout, it will happen. The supply has been a challenge, and we're very, very close here. We're 6 to 8 weeks from having most of the province vaccinated. So get outside, everybody. Enjoy the sunshine. Continue to support each other. Keep your heads up. We're almost there. And we will keep pushing to get Pemberton protected and vaccinated as fast as we can. Believe it or not, I'm sure I missed some stuff. I left some stuff out, but I think I'm putting you out of sleep. So with that, I will turn it over to council reports. Who would like to go first? Suzanne, would you like to go? Councilor Craddock, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. Just to comment on a meeting that you and I both attended by Zoom, the Spell-Koopman Community Forest Public Information Session. It was very well put forward by Clay from out at Lillooet Nation. Basically, they were setting out the cut blocks and the type of timber that's on the property that's going to be harvested. They had their professional forestry consultant there that gave some information on the type of product that's going to be available. It was also brought to our attention that at the present time, lumber is up about 300% over what it was last year at this time. So it's a good time to be in the forest. There's an opportunity that our commitment to the company and the management could be paid off this year, and there may be even some profits, but that'll be down the road and to be determined by council how we're going to use that money and how much money will stay with the company to enhance it and move forward. So I was pleased about the meeting. I think it offered people a good opportunity to ask questions and see where the allowable cut is and where the business is going. And I think Maxine did a great job chairing it and letting people know how encouraged both Village of Pemberton and Lillooet are that we're working so closely together, that we've made a commitment to be in business together. And I think of anything out of this whole process, that's to me is one of the most important things. And I'm really looking forward to it moving forward. So a good time, I think a good presentation, and I'm looking forward to later this fall to see how we make out. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. That partnership, the partnership aspect of that community forest, as well as the ability to steward our own forests, it's a great opportunity. Councilor Zant, did you want to report on?
Thank you, Mayor Richmond. Yeah, so we attended the PEVIS meeting on last Thursday, I believe, and a couple of things to bring up is one of the big ones in my mind was the location of the basketball court that we've been talking about for quite some time now. The board or the staff recommended that we choose a different spot for the basketball court and move it over to the Great Lawn by the community center. There's been some, I don't know how to put it nicely, maybe just some issues, not issues, but just discussions with the school board that didn't go quite the way we wanted them to. So we decided to move the basketball court over to the Great Lawn. That'll go to the board for approval, I believe. And we felt that it being on the closer to the community center has a lot of advantages opposed to being over by Signal Hill. So that was supported by the committee. The other thing was the upcoming projects that we went through. I'm just going to get my page here. Current projects that were approved for 2021 was the Great Hall noise panels, a second floor water fountain, some security upgrades for closed circuit television, and youth care heating and cooling was also approved for 2021 to, I believe it was an upgrade. Potential future projects, if there was funding found through grants, was completion of the Nature Park Phase 4, addition of some shade structures for the in and around the spray park, which is definitely needed. I mean, considering how hot Pemberton can get during the summer, hopefully that's one of the ones we can find some funding for. Addition of some outside furnishings, and then hopefully do a spray park expansion, which the spray parks is always full, so having a little bit bigger, I think would be a great idea. But we'll see if we can find some funding. The other thing, we got the snow clearing invoice for Nairn Falls from Danny Shrans. Council had committed $5,000 to cover that. He came in at $3,400. So rounded up $3,500. So the discussion was just how to, what fund to take that money out of to pay for it. And I believe, did we say the rec fund? I can't remember which one we said it was going to come out of.
The Arts and Recreation.
Arts and Recreation.
Arts and Culture and Recreation.
Right. Those are the three big ones that I had. I think that's all I've got for Peevis, Mayor Richmond, unless there's something that you want to.
Yeah, maybe I could just add a couple of details for council, because I think it's an important one. Well, mostly around the movement of the basketball court. So as Councillor Zant said, the original idea was to put it not pretty close to the outdoor hockey rink on SD 48 property next to Signal Hill. There's some educational gardens and have gone in that area now, as well as the fact that our rec staff felt that it was easier to manage, maintain. It was more appropriate to have it closer to the community center. It was safer, better lit, all that sort of thing. So the proposal from staff was to move it closer to the community center. So this is potentially a big move, and we wanted to make sure that council was aware of it, because we'll definitely hear from people. So if you could picture, if you're walking along the asphalt trail, you've just passed the real estate office on your right. So Mount Currie Coffee Co. real estate office. I always forget the name of the building. What's the name of the building? Yeah.
Winchester.
Thanks. So you're just going by the Winchester. The asphalt trail starts up towards the community center. Right on that corner, on that southeast corner of the Great Lawn, is where the basketball court will go. So really accessible, really good. I think it ties in really well with the BMX and the little skills park there and the skate park and everything else we got going on. It does mean obviously that we were going to give up a good patch of grass on that corner. So we wanted to make sure you were aware of that if there's any concerns, and I know some people might miss some of that grassy area. Fortunately, it wasn't, staff looked around, there is not a lot of other recreational space to be able to put it. So it was felt that this was the best spot, but we wanted to make sure that we brought it to you guys, brought it to your attention. A lot of dog walkers go around there. Hopefully once we fence our dog, off-leash dog area, that'll alleviate some of that. But yeah, I just wanted to put a little bit more attention on that for council. Go ahead, Ms. Bowman.
Yeah, I just wanted to make note that this project is fully funded. So we've just been trying to determine the final location. And also there'll be the installation of some trees. to act as a bit of a buffer, and actually exploring some solar lights as well, which would make sure that they're off by the appropriate time. Yeah, and then we would also go ahead with some public information and potential sighting of that area, just so the community is aware of it.
Yeah. And there was, as CL Gilmore said, it's been built into the budget over a few years now. The hope is, and that's for an asphalt service fenced, completed. The hope is to put an even better finished surface on there, and staff are looking for grants and potential funding opportunities to be able to put a safer, better finish on the court as well. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Well, this is the first I've heard of that, and I have to say I have some concerns about that location. It wouldn't be my first choice. I think it's one of the few places in Pemberton, that Great Lawn, where we can have a bigger event. I can't think of another place in town we can really do that. So I just wanted to register. It wouldn't be my first choice to pave a piece of it.
Thank you. I don't know if it's just me, but you're pretty choppy, but I think the gist of it was that that green space is valuable for large gathering events. Supposed to be. Okay.
Yeah, but also that I
that?
wouldn't. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify in case you didn't hear what I said. I wouldn't support that location personally, because I think it has more value as a large gathering area rather than reserving it for a small group of people that play basketball.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? Okay, Councillor Zemp, did you have anything further on your report?
I would just like to report back on the library board meetings I've been attending.
Okay, go ahead.
The big message from the library right now is that they're open. Despite the new restrictions, they are maintaining the library is open for express browsing. When I walk around town asking people about the library, a lot of them think it's closed. I think that's just because of where the library is located within community center. If they hear the community center is closed, they think the library is closed as well. It's just a simple explanation of just telling people, it's like, well, the library is there, but they are open as they are a separate entity within the community center. A couple other little things. Just gonna pull up my agenda here. Sorry. Oops. So Emma did get a response from Scotiabank. There was some back and forth with the representative, and instead of them receiving $10,000 worth of laptops, there was some discussions about which laptops were best and which ones would be best for the library. Scotiabank basically just dropped them a check for $15,000 to buy laptops. So last I checked with Emma, she was going to pick up the draft from the Scotiabank, and then they were going to go buy exactly the laptops that they want for the library. So there was a big thanks to yourself, Mayor Richmond, for bringing that up during the town hall, and the library and Emma really appreciate that you threw that out there. So they paid off. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
The other two things that I want to bring up is the library board is looking at putting a statement in their agenda opening meeting to recognize that they're also on the unceded territory of the Lil'wat Nation. They want it to be very clear that it's not just to check a box. They want it to have a lot of sentiment behind it, and they want to be true to what they're saying. So there's discussion on the board of what exactly to say. So they'll probably come back with the next board meeting of what exactly that's going to say, just to recognize that we're all meeting on the unceded territory of the Lil'wat Nation. So I thought it just goes to show the character on that board. It's really good. And then the other one I wanted to mention is they signed on to I believe it's with the RCMP to be a safe space for LGBTQ2S plus communities. So they've opted into that program. And I'll just read verbatim from the agenda here. The program allows participating premises to be recognized and identified as a safe haven for members of the LGBTQ2S plus communities if they're a victim of crime or feeling unsafe or in distress. Said individual will be welcomed in and assisted. Assistance in calling the police will be provided if required, and they will be permitted to remain until officers arrive to assist. I thought was just a fantastic thing for the library to be a part of. So once again, it goes to show that the character of the board is just absolutely amazing, and things they do for our community is fantastic.
Could I just expand on that particular program a little bit? We actually had RCMP contact us and to see, we actually put a community call out as well. So I'm glad the library accepted that. We've also named the recreation, the community center, the village office, and the fire hall as alternative sites as well. So I think it was a great program. So I'm glad there were others that decided to take the RCMP up on that opportunity.
On the acknowledgement thing, for everybody, I don't know if I've ever mentioned, if you look on YouTube, Whistler has put a video together on First Nations traditional land acknowledgement, because it has become a check the box sort of thing. You have to make that acknowledgement, and perhaps it's losing meaning as a result. So they put together a wonderful video. It's about 4 minutes. It's very interesting. Have a look on YouTube. It's actually really worth the try. Any other council reports? Okay. Seeing none, I do want to, because it's going to slip my mind, C.L. Gilmore, at the end of our last ministers meeting with Minister Osborne, you had to leave early for another meeting. And at the end, there was a $15 million program announced, and it's to support development services processes. And I don't think I passed it yet. Did I pass this on yet?
No, I did see some information come in via email on that.
Okay, it's to support, it's to improve and support development approval processes on a number of levels. So if you're aware of it and Lisa's aware of it, then we won't go any further. Okay, back to my agenda. Correspondence for action. I'm losing light in here. Correspondence for action. The first one is from Vicki Brown, President of BC Farmers Market. The recommendation is that correspondence be sent to Honorable Adrian Dix, thanking the Minister and the Ministry for its ongoing support and funding of the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program. Somebody like to make that motion? Somebody like to make the motion to send the letter? Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Caddick. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Another one for action. Request is from the Mayor of City of Victoria. Endorsement on some of their programs. Would anybody like to provide comment? Support any of those programs or move receipt? Go ahead, Councillor Caddick.
Yeah, move to receive and file.
Seconder. Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries. Third is from the Pemberton Secondary School students dated March 26, presenting a petition asking to be recognized as stakeholders in the climate action plan being developed by the village. So if you're not aware, about 2 weeks ago, a few weeks ago, we started to get some correspondence from a couple of high school kids who had put together a petition, and I thought it was going to be part of the report. I gave it to Ms. Pedrini, so I don't have it in front of me. I was hoping it was going to be part of the report from the climate action during our committee of the whole. But basically, I'm going to say a dozen or so youngsters from PSS came by the office with some banners and a petition basically calling for action from their municipal government with regards to climate action and climate change mitigation. awesome group of kids, really engaged, not shy to talk and bring it up. They presented their petition, which had a number of items ranging from better regional transit to better separation bins for garbage in the village to not cutting old growth forests in our community forest. When I get it back from Ms. Padrino, or if she shares it, I'll make sure you guys get a copy of it. Again, I was hoping it would be in front of you for the meeting, but I guess we didn't have time to put that
It
together.
actually is on the agenda, page
Is it on there?
194. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you have a look back in your agenda, then you'll see it. There's a copy of it. And, you know, all in all, it was just really great. You know, they're supported by, this one kid in particular is being supported by Protect Our Winters, POW. They're a fairly local environmental group. And they are working with Solomon Productions to put a movie together around this young fellow named Sam Tierney and his peers, who are trying to find ways for young people to have an impact in fighting climate change. And so, yeah, they were working on a movie as well. They've been spending a lot of time together, seeing how what kind of actions teenagers could take. And this was one of them, was to present this petition to the Village of Pemberton. We encouraged them to, and they did participate in the climate impact workshop, which was great. And I'm hoping that we've also just created another channel into the high school with these kids, so we can keep conversation going, not only about climate change, but about other municipal concerns. It was really, really, really great to have them here and have them involved. Okay,
Sorry,
so-
Councillor Noble has a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was wondering how, as a council, we can support these youth in staying engaged and involved.
Well, I think that's a great question. I asked that to Councillor Noble of Sam in particular. I said, you know, we've often talked about our former communications council, our current communications system. We've talked about the importance of having more of a presence in the school. And we wanted to do it a little while back. Obviously, since COVID hit, that's completely dropped off, but we wanted to provide more of a presence there. And so I asked Sam, I said, would you be willing to help sort of open that channel up even further? Would you be willing to be a first point of contact to start with anyway, so that as we have initiatives from the village that come about, that we can sort of reach out to you and figure out a way, whether it's through leadership group or your teachers or whatever, that we can then keep spreading the word and come to the school when it's appropriate and all that sort of thing. So totally agree, Councillor Noble, and I'm hoping the kids that showed up will help with that. But I'm totally open to any ideas we can do, and we've flagged it with Ms. Hutchinson, our communications person, to make that a priority as well. Go ahead.
Maybe when they have something that comes up, we could invite them to a committee of the whole rather than a regular council meeting, so they don't go to sleep but can actually hear some of the process that goes on behind decisions.
I think that's a great idea. I think especially once we have live meetings, and let's keep it in the back of our heads. If there are items that we think that would be of particular interest, we can flag it with Sam and his peers and some of the teachers to see if we can get them involved. So to all of us, let's try to remember that if we feel some items coming up are appropriate for that, we can reach out to the high school. Not the last, second to last item for action.
Your worship, we do need, we have a resolution to receive.
Right, motion to receive, please, the petition. Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Zant for the discussion. Opposed? Motion carries. Ruth Simons from the Howe Sound Biosphere region asking if extending an invitation to attend the Howe Sound Community Forum. We've been noticeably absent on some of the recent community forums. I've attended in the past. I didn't attend the last one. I'm happy to offer the invitation to another member of council. I think we should have a presence at the Howe Sound Community Forum. Even though we're at the north end, I think it's important, and it's connected to our environmental goals. So would anybody be willing and interested in participating in the Howe Sound Community Forum? Come on, somebody is. I'll tell you what, I'll make a thread out of it. If you don't, then I'll attend, and I'll make it part of one of my next mayor's reports, and then you'll have to listen to it. Oh, look at that, Councillor Antonelli. Perfect. You're able to attend on our behalf, Councillor Antonelli? Good. A lot of freezing going on here, so you give me a thumbs up and you can connect with Miss Fraser and we'll.
Yeah, there's a thumbs up.
There it is. Okay, good. And it's not, I don't think it's restricted to one. If anybody else does have the time, I think there's a lot of value there. So the offer's open. And the last item for action,
Sorry, did we get a motion on that?
do we need a motion? or
We
is it-
should, yeah.
Okay, a motion to have Councillor Antonelli attend the upcoming House Sound Committee Forum, moved by Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. And the last one is from the director of the BC Lime Society, asking if the village would like to participate in the Lighting Up Green campaign on May 3rd. Would somebody like to initiate participation or move receipt?
Move receipt.
Receipt.
Okay, move receipt. Councillor Zant, second by Councillor Noble. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then we have 6 items of correspondence for information. Would anybody like to point anything out?
Move receipt.
Move receipt. Seconder, Councillor Craddock. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we got to go back in camera before we do decision on late business, right, Ms. Fraser? Or do we go through late business and all that first?
No, we do all of that first.
Okay, decision on late business. No late business. There's a motion. Right, question period. So for any in attendance who wish to ask questions, please click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. We'll notify staff that you'd like to ask a question and we will unmute your microphone when it's your turn to speak. Are there any attendees, Ms. Kennedy?
We have no raised hands.
Thank you. Then with that, we are going to go back in camera, believe it or not, at 8 o'clock. And the real challenge here is I'm going to have to be made host. So first of all, let's go back into camera and we'll organize ourselves. So I'll recess the regular and I need a motion to go in camera.
Motion to go in camera.
Councillor Zhang, Councillor Noble, all in favor, or anyone opposed, motion carries. So I'll reopen the in-camera meeting.
Okay, just we'll stand